Shabbat Shalom and welcome back to our weekly Torah conversation. Let's put this Shabbat in its appropriate context. This Shabbat is known as Shabbat HaChodesh, and not only do we have extra Torah readings from both the book of Numbers and the book of Exodus, but we even have a special Haftarah. Why all the fuss? I'm glad you asked. Because this Shabbat, Shabbat HaChodesh, begins the Hebrew month of Nisan. Okay, so then what's all the fuss about Nisan? Because the rabbis believe that Nisan has a sanctity in many ways comparable to the month of Tishrei, the month that contains Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and then also, of course, Sukkot. Nisan and Tishrei, 6 months apart exactly, are the twin pillars of the Jewish calendar year. Tishrei, and most especially Rosh Hashanah, celebrate creation, the recognition that God is the ultimate source of our universe, however we understand that. And Nisan not only contains Passover, but the Talmud tells us that precisely now, as Nisan begins, we should dedicate ourselves to trying to understand what our place in this universe is. In Tishrei, we lift our eyes to the sky. In Nisan, we look around us and even into the depths of our own souls, the twin pillars of the Jewish calendar year. And since we celebrate the beginning of Nisan this Shabbat, what does that mean? It means that in 2 weeks, on Friday evening, April 19th, we will all be gathered at Seder tables to celebrate the first evening of Passover. But a personal word here. Yes, a commercial. Please give a thought to inviting a stranger or three to join you at your Seder, someone who might otherwise not have a place to go. You'll be glad that you did, and so will they. Okay, our Sedra is called Tazria, Leviticus 12:1 and following. And Tazria is usually coupled with next week's Sedra Mitzorah. They usually come together. Tazria deals with, here it comes, all kinds of oozing wounds and bodily emissions, any one of which could render us ritually impure. Mitzorah deals with a wide variety of skin diseases and scaly infestations and mold that can pollute buildings. Are you still with me? So basically, we have a 2-week study of diseases that render us impure and require the interventions of a Kohen, of a priest, to restore us to health. Now, hold tight, because I'm about to make a very sharp turn. On Wednesday of this week, I had the privilege of attending a lecture by Rabbi Lauren Birkin, sponsored by the Shalom Hartman Institute, an academy of really serious, high-level adult Jewish studies, headquarters in Jerusalem with a worldwide reach, the Shalom Hartman Institute. And I've studied through that institute now for more than 15 years. Stay with me. Have your seatbelts fastened, because in a few minutes, a whole bunch of loose ends will be magically intertwined, I think. Our Sedras, both this week and next week, speak of serious and debilitating diseases. The teachers in the Talmudic period love to emphasize through allegory that the most vile and corrupting of all diseases is gossip, lashon hara. And they pull off some pretty fancy midrashic moves to prove their point. Rabbi Birkin, addressing the world of April 2019, thank you, dear, can you just kind of move over here? Thank you, Kitty. Shares with us her contention that the most vile and corrupting and dangerous disease today attacking our Jewish community is anti-Semitism. Rather than midrash, to prove her point, she quoted Deborah Lipstadt, who has just published a must-read book on anti-Semitism. Quote, Debbie, "I compare anti-Semitism to herpes. For most of the time we've had herpes, it couldn't be cured over the centuries. If you were suddenly under stress, boom, up would come a herpes infection. Anti-Semitism," Deborah Lipstadt continues, "is like herpes. When a society is under stress, it just appears. A vile disease." Now, then Rabbi Birkin quotes the great Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who taught, "It is a given law," translate that, "it is well known, halacha v'yadua." It is a well-known law that Esau hates Jacob. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, one of the greatest Orthodox poskim decisors of Jewish law in the 20th century, added, "Esau's hatred of Jacob never changes. Even in those nations that behave well toward Jews, their hatred for Jews is actually strong," close quote, Moshe Feinstein. Anti-Semitism, a most vile disease, a herpes, a leprosy, a cancer, is both a global phenomenon and seemingly eternal. Rabbi Birkin is clearly to be found among those of us who consider ourselves, self-description, to be liberal, pluralistic, inclusive, and her work features a willingness, a commitment to seek out partners from multiple and diverse sources and constituencies. And yet, she embraces here the notion that cancerous anti-Semitism is both global and eternal. For Rabbi Birkin, the only question is, what should our most appropriate and effective response be? As a good teacher must, she offered to us this week options, choices that each of us must make for ourselves, but there is no single one best right answer. So I'm going to give you the options she presented. Hold tight. The first option is take our awareness of that shared suffering that is the impact of anti-Semitism and wield it as a tool to build Jewish unity. She quoted Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik. "Since all Jews are bound together in a brit goral," Soloveitchik's term, a covenant of fate, a shared fate, then we should use the reality of anti-Semitism to fuel our drive to build powerful Jewish institutions and a powerful Jewish identity. So that means the reality of anti-Semitism is a great lever to move toward a strengthened Jewish identity. That's the first option, first answer. The second answer Birkin offered is to become more politically woke. We should see anti-Semitism not just as another one of the hatreds and prejudicial postures that infect our society. All of those postures, mind you, are evil. All must be combated, but anti-Semitism, because it is global, because it seems to be eternal, is a standalone. Whether oozing from white nationalism on the right or from Islamic extremism or from leftist judgmentalism and intersectionality, we, she says, must refuse to ally ourselves with any group that embraces those who are contemptuous of Jews, distrust Jews, or accuse Jews of dual loyalty. This second option demands of us that we not be blinded by our own political alliances. There is no place for Jews within political structures that, as Rabbi Stuart Weinblatt wrote, tolerate contempt toward and distrust of Jews. We must therefore, option 2, relentlessly strike out against anti-Semitism wherever and whenever it makes its presence felt. No tolerance. Third option is that we contextualize anti-Semitism, that we see it as it really is, as one of the most persistent of all human diseases. Back to our Sedra. A super herpes, back to Deborah Lipstadt, that can only be treated effectively within the equally global and equally eternal struggle to defend the most vulnerable in every society. Now, this third option demands of us that we vet our purported allies very carefully, and that we work for systemic change and systemic protections that can make it harder for those who will always be out there hating the capital O other, actively turning hatred, their hatred, into hate-filled actions. The third option. Okay, summary points. 1, anti-Semitism is a disease, our Sedra, that can destroy us. 2, the battle against anti-Semitism is worldwide and probably eternal. 3, the Jewish collective, the Jewish family must be protected. 4, we are and we must remain inclusive and tolerant. In this struggle, no matter how hard we have to fight, we must remain true to our core values. 5, we Jews cannot get so tangled up fighting with each other over which of these 3 options to take that our overall resistance to anti-Semitism is weakened, and Birkin says that kind of entanglement is going on right now. Our Sedra demands the use of allegory, disease, lashon hara. There are diseases out there woven into the very fabric of human civilization, diseases that cannot be ignored. In that sense, my friends, each of us is a soldier battling for the shape of the human future, and it is a battle we dare not lose. Okay, that's it. You can unbuckle your seatbelts. Have a thoughtful Shabbat, and please hit share so as to enlist others in this struggle. Shabbat Shalom.